Hey friends, I wanted to share something different on this podcast. This is an audio recording of a live 20-minute teaching that I did around something called the stages of faith. And this was done in the light of a lot of people talking about people of, I guess, Christian notoriety, letting go of their faith, wrestling with their faith publicly, etc. And I wanted to communicate something that some of you may have heard me teach on before, may even have read some books on it, but it's on the stages of faith. And this is the audio recording. The original can be found on YouTube, but I hope this blesses you. Thanks so much. Hey friends, as of late, there's been a lot of activity, a lot of noise, a lot of posts, a lot of articles, all around Christians losing their faith, leaving their faith, having questions about their faith. And I know it's caused quite a bit of alarm and concern with people. Others have been like, oh, thank God somebody's talking about it. I would like to add some perspective to you, which may be new, may be helpful, and maybe give you some language to think about and maybe use and consider. Feel free to share this video if you think it's going to help some people. I have been walking with people for about a decade now that have had big questions around their faith. I've had big questions around my faith, but more particularly helping people understand and coming to understand some of the dynamics that go on in different stages of our faith. And we have to remember that, like life, faith has stages, and like life, we can get stuck in particular stages of maturity and emotional maturity, etc. And in our faith, we can get stuck as well. And so I'm going to unpack something for you in a minute, and I'm going to use my a PowerPoint that I have here, and I've used this in presentations and classes in our Telios Academy, and as I've traveled as well over the years. And I'm going to give you the very, very brief version, although I think it'll probably help some anyway. But probably the easiest way to talk about how this whole dynamic works is to tell you the story about a couple of girls and their horses. This is Susie. Susie grew up loving horses. Her father loved horses. He showed her not only how to raise horses, but how to love horses, how to be disciplined with them, how to care for them, how to learn as much as she could about them. She was passionate about horses and horse riding. She had great teachers and people around her. She was part of a pony club where she also volunteered and was able to help in so many ways. And Susie just loved being around horses, so much so that she even got to perform and was kind of really well known within her circles for her love of horses and how well she rode horses. Jennifer was basically a newbie when it came to horses. She hopped on horses just a couple of years ago. She only just sort of came to love horses through a friend's passion, and but was very soon into wanting to ride faster, maybe even head towards some equestrian, some jumping and those sort of things. But she was still a little bit tentative. She was very green, but she saw the confidence her friends had and thought, I can be that confident too. The thing is, both girls, both ladies fell off their horse. They both one day fell off their horse and ended up in hospital with some serious injury. Susie, the first rider who grew up on the horse, knew what was going on, understood the journey, had been around other mature riders who'd also fallen off her horse, knew what it was to ride, kind of understood what was going on, and knew that one day her and the horse may not agree. Susie knew this was kind of part of the journey. And within 6 to 12 months, even though she was a bit shaky, even though she came back a little bit different, she hopped back on her horse. The other girl, Jennifer, was not as keen. Once she fell off her horse, she was like, that's it. Horses are dumb. I'm never riding them again. This is the dumbest thing I should have done. I don't even believe in what horses stand for, and I don't even know what I was thinking. And she found other friends who'd also fallen off the horses, and they created their big "We Fell Off Our Horses" club. And she found this identity even amongst people who had tried it, but had some poor experiences. And it was strange that even in this crisis, she formed this community and identity, and had a sense of belonging with everyone else who hated horses. Susie, on the other hand, knew her community, knew her tribe, knew how much she loved horses, so she was back on her horse. What does this have to do with the faith journey? Maybe you're able to put some things together here. Let me tell you very quickly, and this is what I encourage you to look at, is the 6 stages of faith. And this book is amazing. You can get it on Amazon and Kindle, and I'm about to unpack for you in a few minutes what this unpacks in hours and hours and hours of teaching, and also in reading the book. So what does it look like if somebody becomes a Christian? What are the stages of faith? Okay, what does a healthy journey look like? And in the book, The Critical Journey, the authors put forward something which was also a deviation of Fowler's stages of faith, which is a deviation of stage theory. So in the spiritual development space, this does have some clout and some background. It's not just wishy-washy stuff. This is things that are apparent across all kinds of faith. So whether you're Christian, Muslim, or something else, there is still stages of faith that are common to everybody. The first stage is a recognition of God. And this is basically where we say, hey, I found God. This is the I found God stage. It's super exciting. And some ministries are really good at this. They get people across the line. They help people and get people into a space where they recognize who God is. The next stage, very quickly, is called the life of discipleship. And this is where you go to a church, you learn about the Bible, you become part of a new Christian family, you find charismatic leaders to attach to, you read the Bible, you learn about it, you learn about who Jesus is. You really are, you need certainty, you need strong connections, you need strong attachments, and you find them in your faith community. And you could be at this stage for a decade or more. What we have to understand is all these stages are cumulative, and they're also fluid. They will happen in the macro over a lifetime, and the micro in little stages over months or weeks. But this is the stage where you learn and you attach and you find charismatic leaders and you love what they say. Stage 3 is what we call the productive life. And this is where you figure out what your strengths are, and you go and you serve. You think, wow, I can't just be a hearer of the word. I've got to be a doer, and I want to join with others. I ask, what are my strengths? What am I good at? And I go and I begin to serve. And primarily, often we'll begin to serve in a local church or faith community of some sort. And this stage 1, 2, and 3 could all be something that takes you into your 30s and maybe even 40s. Okay. I'm giving you some ideals and generalizations, but this is roughly, you're going to be in your 30s and 40s when somewhere along the line, your mind blows, a crisis happens, you begin searching for new answers, your heart breaks, and you think, what the heck has gone on? And we call this the inward journey, and this is stage 4. And within the inward journey is this moment where it's your will versus God's will, and we call this the wall. And the wall is your will versus God's will. And you may be in stage 4, the inward journey, where you become reflective, where you must become reflective, where you must be asking the questions. All the certainty and everything you learn about in stage 2 of all the leaders you love, you begin to question them. You find new leaders, you find a new tribe. And this is the inward journey. I want you to know, somewhere between the productive life and the inward journey, some kind of big crisis, faith crisis, life crisis happens, and you fall off your horse. You have an accident, you're in pain, you're wounded, and you begin to question, was there really even a horse? Was it worth riding the horse? What's going on? Eventually, if you come out of that inward journey and you get the right help and you surround yourself with the right people, and the right people come around you, and you have space and time and patience with yourself, you have this thing out with God where you realize, I can't scale this wall, and by his grace I'm brought through it. We may eventually go to the outward journey. And this is similar to stage 3, where you see, instead of the church, we have the world. And you're still asking questions, but you're no longer worried about your strengths. You're more aware of your weaknesses. And the gift in stage 4 is you realize you're not that crash hot. You're not that strong. You're not that tough. And you begin to serve. And here's what the book says. You come back and you begin to serve as a different person, or you begin to serve in a different area. Okay. And you carry peace, and you're no longer going through cycles of burnout. And this is where you are rediscovering what it looks like to re-enter the world with having done this whole journey now. Okay. Again, all these cycles, you might be looking at 5, 10, 15 years. And finally, somewhere later in life, if you keep maturing through, you live a life of love. And these are kind of often the stage 5 and 6 are the true elders in our faith community, people that have been through the mill, been through the cross, been through the valley of the shadow of death, and have really absolutely surrendered their life to God and service with no questions asked. And this kind of maturity and this kind of life we see in people like Henry Nouwen, and you may know people, people that are maybe in their 60s and 70s and 80s plus in your church and in your faith, who have lived for decades and walked with the Lord and been through these things and are just abandoned to love, so much so that some people think they're crazy, but they just know how to live a life of love. Now, here's what we have to understand is the first 3 stages, these outer stages, and the last 3 are the inner stages. The first 3 stages are the outer stages, and the last 3 are the inner stages. And what you need to understand, I think this is so crucial if you catch anything here, is that we have to understand that these stages here, these outer stages, these 3 things here, okay, are all prescriptive. I can create a program that brings you to Christ, into the church. I get discipled, I get involved, I get learning, and I get serving, and I'm active. And I might be here for decades. It may be here, except one day there's some kind of a crisis, something internal, external happens. God doesn't create the crises, but he gives you the grace to move forward. So these are prescriptive, okay? I'm just going to write prescriptive here. These stages here, stages 4, 5, and 6, my friends, are not prescriptive. They are individual. They are as unique as we are. I cannot tell you how you go through stage 4, how to go through it properly. We can give you markers. We can give you encouragement. I don't know what it looks like in stage 5 for you or in stage 6. This is individual. This is all about you and God, you and the Trinity, you and what life looks like for you. Okay, this is the thing. But how am I going to join this back to the horse? This is my concern today in today's, I guess, climate, where we are rich and blessed with some amazing access to podcasts, deconstruction driven podcasts, where you have a whole stack of people who are in stage 4 and are creating a tribe. It's the tribe of everybody that fell off the horse and can't be bothered getting back on. Okay. And an identity and an industry and money and what, I don't know, stuff is created around this that is actually not interested in moving people through to the outward journey. They act, and through the stage, through the valley of the shadow of death, through this very difficult time, they actually are more interested in sitting here and getting stuck in this stage of bitterness and lack of forgiveness, and they begin to they lack wisdom in the way that they share, and it becomes an unhealthy identity. It's the club of everybody who fell off the horse. And this is what I know, and this is pastors and leaders, if you're listening, I want you to understand something. These first 3 stages here, this is where you learn to ride the horse. And what I've noticed is that people who get stuck and fall away during this stage 4 inward journey, where there's some kind of a crisis that happens here, those that fall away never really learnt to ride the horse well. Okay, you have to learn to ride the horse before you fall off the horse. Okay, and for those of you who are maybe fairly new in your faith, maybe you're in your 20s. Okay, I'm 41. If I heard this stuff in my 20s, the stuff that I can hear on different podcasts and things, I'm reading now about, you're going to have your questions in your 20s and your early 30s. Okay, you're going to have those questions, and questions are good. It's good to wrestle. Trust me, it's good to wrestle, but you've got to make sure that wrestle is one you've got the strength for. If you're going to be jumping, you need to know how to ride that horse over that jump. Okay, and so you need to get grounded in your faith, understand some fundamental biblical principles, understand what it means to serve even when you don't feel like it, even when it's hard sometimes, understand what it means to be productive and serve God and serve the community and volunteer, all the things that are involved in a productive life where we live with a sense of great purpose. It's so important that discipleship is done, that these fundamentals are actually grounded. You have to learn to ride the horse before you fall off the horse. Okay, a lot of people, because one day everyone falls off the horse, and what is going to make the difference of whether you get back on, like our story with Susie, is who was around, who helped you, who allowed you to be in hospital and have your questions, but who encouraged you to get back on that horse and eventually ride forward. You have to know, okay? And so if you're in your 20s and your early 30s and you're listening and you're like, that's me, and leaders, I get it. There are young people in our church that are not ready to hear the disaster stories of when riders fell off their horse, okay? That freaks people out. People have big questions, okay, around faith, and people then create industry and false identities that it's me against them, and it's the churches, Hey, you know what? To you who are in that, we've all been through that. A lot of us have been through that. You're going to find people in church that have been through that, okay? Get the right help if you're in stage 4. Don't get stuck. This is not the end, okay? Find counselors, therapists, people in inner healing, voices of people that are beyond your stages that are going to be able to help you and give you hope to say, hey, get back on the horse, find the healing, get help, humble yourself. Don't find some kind of new cloak and clothing that says, well, we're the people that are, you know what? Everybody's going to get offended. Everybody gets wounded. All right. And if you're really early on in your faith journey, go and visit that stuff later on. Let me encourage you, if you don't have any real reason to be asking these big questions and doing these, this deconstruction stuff, which I think is healthy in the right place, but it can be unhealthy if it goes to people who are immature in their faith and not ready. And to leaders and those discipling, not out of fear, but out of love and wisdom, it's important that we teach people that we're discipling, people that we want to see grow and mature. It's important that we teach them how to discern where people are at in their faith, in their faith journey. I have a lot of my ministry is geared towards helping people move through stage 4. So I get it. I get the language. I've been and learned a million lessons with God over the last decade from my life and so many others. But whatever I've shared today, I do hope it's of encouragement to you. We need to understand that sometimes this is stage 4 seems like the end for people, but some of them are just in hospital. And if they've learned to ride the horse well, they've learned who Jesus is, if they've learned what it is to serve and the joy and the passion of living with Christ, have hope that they'll get back on the horse. And don't give them a hard time. Don't condemn them. Don't shame them. Be around them, pray with them, love on them. And I believe, like the prodigal son came home, they'll actually move forward. But here's the paradox I would just want to throw in there. They're not far away. If these people are in stage 4, or you're in stage 4 and you're wrestling with God, you have to know, aside from sex, there is no other visceral, emotionally intense exercise than to wrestle with another person. Okay? This is intimacy. Stage 4 can be the most amazing, revelation, life-changing and necessary leg of your journey, that when you look back, you'll kind of thank God for some of the stuff you had to endure. With that outworking of that, you see a life that flourishes, and you'll discover a side of the Trinity and the ways of God, and not just the God of the breakthrough, but the God of the breakdown, who will walk with you and others through to the rest of your life and onwards to eternity in knowing Christ. So bless you. Hope that's of help to you. Feel free to share this. It is a bit lengthy, but I hope that explanation is of benefit to you. If you go to our TeliosAcademy.com website, you'll see in the 2019 recordings, we did 2 weeks on the stages of faith, where I unpack them a lot more. You can rent those if you want, but reach out to me. Shalom, bless you. Thanks for taking some time. Thanks for listening to this podcast. It's available on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, davidtenson.com, and also on our Patreon page, patreon.com/leaderheart, where you can find more stuff and support us through a monthly donation. If you are listening to this on iTunes, I would really appreciate a rating and a review. It would really help get the word out there. Till next time, shalom.